I should start with what I do. Nirmal Ghosh, I am a senior foreign correspondent for the Straits Times, which is Southeast Asia's leading English language daily based in Singapore. I've been a foreign correspondent since '94. I've lived and worked in the Philippines, in Singapore, in Philippines, back in India, where I'm from, and now in Bangkok, currently based in Bangkok, looking after the Indochina region. I'm Indochina Bureau Chief. Throughout all these years, I've covered many areas, politics, natural disasters, and so forth. But one of my specialties is environment. And one of the biggest challenges today is how we have to adapt to an increasingly interconnected, globalized world. And I'm talking about a galloping pace of infrastructure improvement in places like Southeast Asia, where they're building Asian highways. The ASEAN Economic Community is going to come into force in 2015. So greater integration all around, greater connectivity, which automatically opens up routes for trafficking, criminal networks to exploit. And this is something which we really have to be aware of in order to manage the consequences of change.
Well, my name is Belinda Wright, and I live and work in India. And I'm the Executive Director of the Wildlife Protection Society of India. And for the past 20 years, I have focused on wildlife crime, which is environmental crime, and largely on poaching issues, prosecution issues, and in particular, the poaching and trade in wild tiger parts. Mm-hmm. I think the real issue is it's very, very difficult to save the animals in the wild that are in huge demand in the illegal wildlife trade. Mm-hmm. Most of the species that are poached in India, including tigers, rhinos, elephants, pangolins, many things like sea cucumbers and shark fin and coral and seahorses and bear bile, and so it goes on. India is like a huge supermarket of wildlife products, and most of those products actually end up in China. The demand is in the markets in China, and it's very unfortunate that the Chinese government could probably do a lot more in trying to stem that demand. And it's certainly very, very difficult in the wild to protect every single animal that's out there. And an animal like the tiger is a walking cash register.
Thank you very much. I would like first to thank most sincerely the global initiative for associating the Lusaka Agreement Task Force with this meeting by inviting us and also facilitating our attendance here. My name is Bonaventure Ibai. I'm currently the director of the Lusaka Agreement Task Force in Nairobi. The work of the Lusaka Agreement Task Force is mainly focusing on investigation, intelligence work, and also joint enforcement activities with national bureaus of the Lusaka Agreement in the respective member states, and also associating neighboring country to member states in Africa particularly. And to enhance this, we have also built up a partnership with international organizations such as Interpol, World Customs Organization, WCO, and many other sub-regional and regional agencies mainly dealing in enforcement work. At national level, we also involve the police, the customs, and also the conservation NGOs, including international and national NGOs. Also, we involve the media so as to enhance our ability to deal with the crisis. wildlife crime is becoming a global concern, and Africa is not exempted. It's one of the most affected region in the world in terms of wildlife crime. And the main challenge which we are facing actually is the shift from the traditional poaching and trafficking in wildlife to a more militarized poaching activities by poaching gangs, and also involvement of well-resourced traffickers who are organizing and funding and facilitating all the activities, which are mainly focusing on corrupt practices from the bottom line up to the higher authorities in the respective countries. So corruption is one of the area that we expect the international community to support the countries in dealing with, because everything happening on the ground is based on corrupt practices. Our main challenge is funding. We expect also the international community to be able to raise sufficient funding support, which will allow countries to benefit from and undertake capacity building programs, also to be able to intensify the field work in the area of combating wildlife crime in Africa.
Okay.
Look at the current situation in wildlife crime. I think the most serious issue at the moment is inadequate cooperation among the states and inadequate compliance with international conventions and existing international conventions, especially on biodiversity related, like CITES, like CBD and CMS. So there is a real need for countries to focus in addressing this issue of compliance and the enforcement of ratified conventions. Another aspect is, as I said before, corruption is growing, and it becomes a main concern in all the field of natural resources management worldwide. You can have it from fishing industry to forestry industry, passing through the wildlife industry. The same problem is corruption. And for our field, for example, I think corruption, which is very, very critical for the frontline agencies like customs, we think it is one of the growing issues which the international community should try to focus on to assist countries. Mm-hmm. I think the area of wildlife crime is becoming prominent, and it is strengthening almost the whole setup of the management of wildlife globally and in the countries. For Africa, for example, tourism is one of the emerging industry in Africa and globally. But for Africa, tourism is more based on wildlife conservation. So by losing wildlife resources, Africa is losing the ability to develop its tourist industry, and will contribute to growing of economies and to be able to tackle all the challenges which are experienced in the African society. So for me, wildlife crime is one of the most important parts, which include animals, fish, and all the biodiversity resources. It is currently my very big worry, including forestry, because timber industry and illegal timber trade is also on growing trend, and it will lead us to deforestation. And it is a big threat. I think wildlife crime, as such, is very serious at the moment.
I think in environmental criminal syndicates are using technology just as normal people do. But they use technology to exploit loopholes in the law and to take advantage of the increasing connectivity. Now, with technology as it is today, you don't even have to be on the site to commit a crime. That is one of the problems. And with the opening up of countries like Myanmar, which has been pretty closed for almost 4 decades, with the exploitation of countries like Cambodia, resource-rich, but non-transparent countries, Laos, for example, is not transparent at all. It's very resource-rich. We find that the natural resources of these countries are being exploited at an unprecedented scale. And how to stop it, how to control it, really, how to ensure that it is not, the natural resources are not looted by criminal syndicates with no benefits flowing to local people at all. That is a big challenge. Not really. I think they're all at a critical stage. We have, for example, biodiversity loss at a massive rate, which we could walk into some parts of Southeast Asia, which is one of the most biodiverse and one of the richest biodiversity areas in the world. You can walk into some of the jungles there and find not a single living thing. It's all been wiped out. So you have massive species loss in numbers and in terms of species. Then you have deforestation, and then of course you have the marine ecosystem nearing collapse with rampant overfishing all across Southeast Asia and Indochina, the coastal regions. So that's a huge concern. So I don't think any one is more important than the other. They all have equal importance. It's just that some are more visible than others. The species loss is not that visible unless you go in and study it. Forest loss is very visible. Marine environment species loss is even less visible. So it's a question of finding out what is the most severely affected area.
Okay. I think that from when I started working on this, it was a very kind of haphazard kind of crime, very opportunistic. Now it's very organized, and the prices are known, sort of modus operandi of how things are moved, how products are moved. Of course, communications are much better. They can immediately on their mobile phones can talk to the buyers who are usually based in Nepal or in China. Nepal is often used as this sort of transit point. And so it's incredibly slick now, which makes it very, very difficult to effectively stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I think that all the big megafauna have been targeted because there's huge profits. It's a very lucrative business, and that's ivory from elephants, horns from rhinos, and skins and bones and other body parts from tigers. But in the last year or so, I've seen a certain shift. Some of the gangs who focused only on, say, tiger and leopard parts have now moved and are focusing on pangolins, for instance, because pangolins has suddenly become a very productive, lucrative business. So, and also because tigers and leopards are getting rarer and they're much more difficult to find and to kill. Mm-hmm. So the tigers that are inside the core area of tiger reserves are much better protected. So the poachers have been focusing on animals outside the tiger reserves, and now those numbers are being depleted. So they can easily take up another species, and unfortunately, a lot of them are the same chains, same buyers, and so on. So it's very easy for them to go to the lesser known species and still make a lot of money.
Okay.
Well, I think that the world hasn't really woken up to the fact that environmental crime is such a huge issue. And it's not just an issue for sort of fluffy bunnies and nice, pretty tigers. It's actually a critical issue for the health of this planet and the health of its inhabitants. and it's very closely related to climate change, particularly through the loss of forests, illegal logging, and so on. And I think the global initiative is important because it's for the first time it's bringing together all aspects of environmental crime, be it fishing or logging, tigers, rhino horn, ivory, whatever it is, and bringing it together and documenting very solidly with good facts and statistics and things of why it's so important for nations to bring, to curb environmental crime. And it's really, the clock is ticking. So it's very, very important that countries do this. It's very, very important that donors are well informed about this problem, and that the political powers, or the people who are in political power, actually realize how important it is, and have a sort of base like the global initiative to go to be well informed.
The global initiative is an important development because nobody right now is focusing on environmental crime as an issue, especially globally. There are sectoral reports by various NGOs on different issues like fisheries, illegal logging, and so forth, but not on environmental crime. And these are the criminal networks who are operating outside the law, looking for loopholes, exploiting and looting natural resources. Right? The global initiative can bring a new perspective, criminality, to this debate, raise it to a high priority, and give it an edge so that people, the general public at large and policymakers need to be aware that transnational environmental criminal syndicates are outflanking and outmaneuvering existing protocols and conventions quite successfully, aided by corrupt regimes, non-transparent regimes. And the global initiative can, for the first time, actually bring a sharp focus to this issue and push it and raise it on the agenda of policymakers.
Thank you very much. I think historically, the Lusaka argument have been associated with the need to promote high-profile response to wildlife crime. And we have been working with many of actual and existing international organizations, such as Interpol, CITES, and the CBD. And we have realized that we need more and more initiatives at global level to be able to design the best response we need to be able to address this issue of wildlife crime. So for me, the global initiative being an initiative driven by experts, not by government as such, not by NGO as such, but it is more driven by experts from various fields, will be able to, outside the political arena, to be able to propose something which can be able to be more efficient globally to tackle wildlife crime and many other kind of environmental crime. And we have a very huge and very high expectation that the global initiative, with the expertise currently and to come, will be able to assist the global community to better strategize and also find the global response to what we are expecting.